So my friend just left. I had a whole video, 51 minutes recorded, and I said, I'm just going on way too many tangents, even for me. So I stopped it, started over. So my friend who came a knocking, so this is going to take a little bit of history, and again, I'm not going to go off as many tangents this time. So we met at BrickFet a long time ago. One of the first, one of the earlier BrickFets, and he would come every year, and I loved his mocks. Basically, he is building a layout, like a town layout of scale that's not micro scale, but it's not minifig scale. It's the scale that basically came out in the mid or early 70s, the mid 70s, even before the motionless minifigs that came out, I believe, in 75. So it was like 1973, the original fire station, the original police station, where you didn't have figs, but you had the 2x4 trans clear slope as the windshield of the vehicles. All vehicles were 4 wide. All houses used that 1x2x2 door, the red doors, that scale. And what he does is he uses modern parts to build at that scale. And I remember the first couple BrickFets, his layouts were just spectacular, because it's just my youth, my very early youth, and because he had some building techniques from back then. But he's been progressively building more and more with modern parts, but the vehicles and the buildings and the layout is at that scale. Again, not micro scale, but not minifig scale. It's kind of halfway in between. And so what had happened is that he said, because he is from 1973 to whatever, we started talking. I said, oh, I have so many pieces from that era, windows, doors, shutters, all that stuff. And he said, oh, well, that's interesting, because I need some. And so what happened was, after BrickFet, way back in the day, we would exchange pieces. We occasionally he would come across classic space pieces, or unique pieces that he wouldn't use in his stuff, and he knew I would use, and I would just give him with the pieces that he needed, like doors, windows from that era, and whatever else. And so we came up with this exchange. We did it like 2 or 3 times. At the next BrickFet, I have a baggie of stuff, and he'd have a baggie of stuff, and we just exchanged. So he called me up yesterday, and he said, we moved, my wife and I moved, he says, and we have to downsize. And so I thought about you, he said to me, because I have a whole baggie of classic space parts that you might be interested in. And I said, absolutely, of course I am. And I said, well, what do you want in return? He says, nothing, because again, we have to downsize. We are in a smaller apartment now than our old house. And I am limited in space now to a specific. So this would be doing me a favor by getting rid of these parts, and you can have them for free, because I want to know that they're going to a good house. Well, this is a good house for classic space parts. So he says, I'll come over tomorrow, and then so that's today. And he says, I'll drop them off. So he showed up. That was a knocking in the last video, and so I ran upstairs, and we played catch up for a good half an hour, 45 minutes. Was wow. It's been a long time, because he missed the last BrickFet, the last one that we had, because he had some personal matters to attend to, and so I didn't see him at that one. And I think we talked once or twice since then. But he called me up yesterday. He says, I have these pieces. Thought you might want them. And so he came over. And this is the thing about this hobby. And I don't know. Like you often hypothesize. You often wonder how much life would be different right now. Because again, I was born. Really, I mean, they say the internet was invented in 1965, ARPANET. I think that was the year ARPANET came into existence, but that was just for military and blah, blah, blah. The internet itself didn't start catching on till I won't even say late 80s. It was the 90s for me anyway. The 80s, I was still using modems to dial into BBSs. that started in the 80s, because I got my 64 back in 82, 83, and I bought a modem for it in the 87, 88, maybe. Maybe earlier than that, because I remember using it when we were in college. So the dial-up modems into BBS is probably mid 80s, and then the internet maybe became something in the early 90s. So I was born well prior to the internet being a public thing, and so would I have met adult fans of Lego if there was no internet? Because again, I never had a dark ages. I was playing with Lego in my 20s and 30s and 40s prior to the internet. But again, after 15 years old, I was the only person that my age range that I knew of that was actively playing with Lego as a hobby. Excuse me. And so I find it intriguing to think about that. Had the internet not shown up, would I have found anybody out there that plays with Lego the way I did? And then I started thinking, would this hobby that I'm partaking in be this extensive in my life if it wasn't for the internet? Because again, I never had the dark ages, but I didn't have a huge collection back then. I had the garage sales, yes. I had the thrift stores, yes. I had the ad in the paper prior to the internet, both times. But a lot of this stuff came from Kijiji, from the marketplace, and even the stories. So like my Galaxy Explorer story, of course that was the internet because that was eBay. Right. So and even if the internet was there, but I didn't find Lugnet and RTL Toronto, this definitely I don't think would be nearly as big, because what happens is I met fellow fans and we have a shared passion, which kind of has an echo chamber to increase your passion for something. And so for me, I can almost guarantee I never would have done the Galaxy Explorer stunt for a year. Like I said, bidding on every single Galaxy Explorer on eBay for an entire year, if it wasn't for RTL Toronto, because I went to an RTL Toronto dinner. I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I won't say egged on, but people are like, hey, this is a great idea. Hey, how's it going? And blah, blah, blah. And so would I have done that without RTL Toronto? Probably not. So and this never would have happened. So what happened is I built a friendship at BrickFat and after BrickFat. And my friend said to me, as I said yesterday, I have to downsize. I want the stuff to go to a good home. And the first thing I thought of was you. And so I am extremely fortunate. I keep on talking about this. I'm extremely fortunate. This is another data point into how extremely fortunate I am to be living the life I have, where I build relationships with people wherever I am. This is what I want to do. And so the hobby for me is not just about the bricks. It's not just about the sets that Lego produces. It's not about the mocks. It's the relationships that I've had. Again, I would still be a fan of Lego even without the internet, even without my friends, but I would not be this extensive. Because my friends make me more passionate about this hobby than I otherwise would have been without them. So, these pieces were dropped off just now. Again, I mentioned in the last video the minifigs that I found doing the cleanup. So this is what he brought me. So this is oh, here we go, more minifigs. More minifigs, and some of these figs are in extraordinarily good condition. You can see the gold is really, really good in that guy, and the face and everything. So a couple more black guys, because black minifigs, because all my black minifigs are in the layout. So and he brought me a Benny Spaceship 2 from the second movie. I love this set. It hits all the right marks for me, and again, because it has this big funky base plate in the bottom, I wanted to build more of these, my 918s that uses that base plate. So and I regret to this day not buying more at Walmart when I saw them and Toys R Us, because they were pretty cheap, and I'm sure they got down to deep discount at the end, and I just You know, I think I only bought 2 or 3, and there's actually one in the layout. It's in the bin. It's in the shelf. So, so that's a fantastic thing to have, and I have to thank my friend for that. And then a bag of bricks that has this in it. This is awesome, you know. And a couple of these, always nice to have. So those, and I actually found old blue rails and a couple gray rails in here. A lot of printed bricks, and overall extremely good condition bricks. Like seriously, very little beat up bricks. Look at the gold on that, very nice. Printed slope bricks, supports, trans dark blue windshields, trans black windshields, trans light blue windshields. So radar dishes. So just a plethora of really good classic space parts that I can use. Original tires, classic space tires. I am more than humbled by the fact that he wanted and he thought about me, giving me these pieces. Even this guy here, I love that guy. I don't have too many of them, so it's nice. The trans red windshield that came out, shield that came in the 6971. A bunch of them came in that one. I'm going to be using these. I'm absolutely going to be using these. The pieces from here are going to be in my next. They're going to be in the next show. I'm going to build some other stuff for the layout, add to it, because I do like adding to the layout every time I do it. And I'm going to be using specific pieces from this collection right here. So this is where I keep on saying I am the most fortunate, luckiest guy, in my small opinion, in this hobby, because things come to me. And I'm always seem to be in the right spot at the right time to do the stuff I want. Like we did, speaking of egging on, so way back in the RTL Toronto days, buddy Chris pulled a stunt. He took a 1x1 brick, whatever, and he just like the people who had a paper clip and swapped it for something bigger, better until he got a house. So he got a house for a paperclip, basically, and a lot of logistics on top of that. So buddy Chris takes a 1x1 plate or 1x1 brick, and he gets a 8880, the black supercar, or was that the last top before what he wanted? I can't remember now. But anyway, he got the big Technic set by doing a lot of swapping on Lugnet. So I didn't try that stunt, but I tried some, as I said, the Galaxy Explorer stunt. I did that. A lot of fun. But overall, over my entire life, I always want to build relationships with people, build friendships with people, and this is such a blessing for me. This isn't why I do it, obviously, but this is what happens when you do it, and so I do find, as I keep on saying, I am a very fortunate person to have people out there in the world who think of me enough to say, hey, I have a bag of classic space pieces. I'm going to give them to Dave. So it's just like, wow, I am very humbled by this. My entire life, I've had really wonderful friendships. And honestly, it comes from my parents, who, when I was growing up with them, they were very socially active people. My dad was the chief instructor and president of his diving club for many years. My mom was actively involved in the church and the United Church Women and Boy Scouts, obviously, clearly Boy Scouts, as one of the top leaders for doing stuff. And what they showed me over the years is that these things require work and effort, and you have to let go of the pettiness. You can't get bogged down in the I've been slighted by people, because that doesn't work when you're trying to put yourself out there all the time. And so I saw that growing up, and what I really appreciate about my parents is that they showed me that good things require effort all the time. You can't just coast. And on the flip side, I what I did not learn from my parents, but I learned from myself, is that you can't schedule everything. you can't you can't take into account every situation or every possibility. And so I am my parents' kid, in one way, where I appreciate building relationships with people and make them as long lasting as possible. And there's been very, 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 very few people in my life that I told them to get out of my life and never come back. I don't think there's been 5 in my entire life where I said, go screw yourself, I don't want to talk to you again. And so, but on the flip side, I also don't actively, quote unquote, actively maintain friendships, like calling every week, how you doing, how you doing, how you doing, how you doing. I'm not that guy. You're living your life over there, I'm living my life over here. Should something cross my mind that, hey, maybe my buddy Joe would like this, I'll call Joe. Hey Joe, this is what happened to me today, and remember this happened to us way back when, and we'll have a talk about that and a little laugh. But until I actively say you're no longer in my life, you're in my life. And if I don't talk to you for 7 years or 13 years or 2 decades, no sweat off my nose, and as long as no sweat off your nose. I'm not feeling slighted by you for not calling me for 20 years. I had a friend when I was 4 years old. I had a friend when I was 4 years old, and we went through nursery school, kindergarten, grade school, high school together, and even into college. He wasn't at my college, but we were friends in college. And then he got a job out of the country, and I didn't keep track of him. I talked to his parents once or twice after that. Oh, he's in wherever in the world doing stuff. Happy for him, extremely happy for him. And then about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, he calls me up one day. He says, hey, Dave, I'm back in town. Want to go for a coffee? Absolutely. And it was like, it never stopped. But that was 2 decades between high school and him calling me up for a coffee. That's what's going to happen. Life's like that. I don't have any animosity. I don't say, oh, that person's never calling me. I'm writing on a big X. This person, I'm out of my life. You have your life over there. I'm busy enough with mine. I can't keep track of all my friends. But if I have an idea that, hey, maybe Joe would like this, I'm going to give you a call and I'm going to say, hey, Joe, this is what happened to me, and I hope you appreciate it. And so I'm a lot more laissez-faire. I'm a lot more que sera, sera. I'm a lot more whatever. I don't feel slighted unless I actually tell you that I feel slighted. I don't feel like you have to put like constant effort into maintain a friendship all the time because we're friends. You don't have to. Like, you don't have to. And it's like this was going somewhere. I forgot. Oh yeah. So it's like it's like this is my quick tangent on this thing. I really appreciate my friend Janie more than she probably knows, but I really appreciate her, and not just for who she is. I've always really appreciated people who are artistically inclined, because my mom was artistically inclined, and I really appreciate my mom. Not to say Janie's my mom, but we're not going to go into any Freudian whatever. but I appreciate Janie. But the one thing that I appreciate in this aspect about Janie, so we'll back this up a few steps. I didn't meet Janie until we started doing shows, the hobby show and the toy train and doll show, and that's when we became really, really good friends. But basically what would happen is the hobby show, the Lego portion of the hobby show, the Lego display was run by a guy named Alan, friend of mine. Alan said to RTL Toronto and on Lugnet at the time, by the way, the hobby show is going to be happening in Toronto. I've asked them to give us a 20 by 20 or 20 by 30 space on the floor as exhibitors. And let me know if you can be there. And he was very, very methodical and thorough, and had the schedule and what was going to be there and the floor layout, where what things are going where. And I admired him for that. That's who he is when it comes to these things, because he's one of these logistics guys who knows all the pertinent details and blah blah. That's what he needed to do, and I 100% supported him. I said, I'm going to be there. This is what I'm bringing. Blah blah. This is what you need. This is what you're asking for. This is what I'm going to give you. And everybody else did that too. So we did that for a few years, and then Alan stepped back, And he called me up and he says, Dave, I know you've been doing the other shows. Can you do the hobby show for us? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so when I started doing the hobby show, I would post on RTL Toronto and whatever else. Hey guys, the hobby show's this weekend. I'm going to be there. Show up if you so desire. And people showed up. so it's completely laissez-faire, completely ad hoc, completely whatever. I'm not saying my way's good. Trust me, it can blow up in your face. My thing is that I know the people that I was saying, hey guys, we have a show this weekend. Be there. They're going to be there. So it's like, so I already had that assurance that I didn't have to worry about it. If you know your cast of characters, then you know your cast of characters. And so, and that's how I basically ran my shows overall at the hobby show, the Toy Train and Doll show, any other show that I was piggybacking on. Where I call up the people, the management of the show, and say, oh, by the way, do you want us to have a Lego display there? I'll give me a 20 by 20 foot area, and we'll do you proud. And we always did. We always did. So what? Now on the flip side, being laissez-faire, you don't have the you don't have it set up. So sometimes people bring too much and they don't have the space to display, so they can't display what they wanted to bring. That sometimes will ruffle some feathers. It really should. Had I been more like Alan, and this is where his way of handling things comes in wonderfully, is that for the weekend, these are the spots in the floor. This is already dedicated to that. This is that, and so people know exactly what to bring and exactly where to put it. And so you're not overbringing and you're not underbringing. My way is like, show up with whatever you want to bring. And then sometimes it stays underneath the table, and then people, it's give and take. Like I more than admire the way Alan does it with the logistics and the specifics. And it's just that's not within me. The other part regarding that specific thing, and this brings it back to Jeannie. First of all, she bailed me out in so many shows. Of those shows, she'd bring stuff, and she was one of the people that would overbring stuff and not care that it wasn't shown. She would just bring whatever she could. She says, oh, you have a space on this table? Here, she'll put something there, and she'll put something over in that corner there. And she was absolutely perfect for my shows, because she would bring stuff, and if it didn't get displayed, her feathers were not ruffled. She goes, I get it, and whatever. So this is where I admire Janie, but this is where I admire Janie more. So the good part about the way I ran my shows, they weren't my shows. They were somebody else's shows. It was the Toy Train and Doll show run by Doug and Frank. It was their show, and I called them up, and I had a really good friendship with Doug and Frank. The fall show, the Christmas show, whatever. Hey, Doug, do you want us there this weekend, that weekend? Give us a 20 by 20 area, drop off a few tables, a few chairs. Perfect. Hang up the phone. Never think about it again. It's their show. They have to do all the prep for the show. They have to do all the background stuff. A year in advance, they have to start booking the hall, getting whatever, organizing all the people, make sure that nobody's feathers are ruffled, because that's their job. I tried, my value added to that show is to tell Doug and Frank, just give us a 20 by 20 and you never have to think about us again. Here's a list of the passes that we need. That's it. And not, the light's not right. Oh, the floor's not. No. You give us a spot on the floor, we'll fill it for you, and that's it. We are not the Karens of displayers. We show up, we have a great time. And so that's our value added service to their show, that we would just show up and give a good display and have a great time for the weekend. Whereas they have a whole year of prep and logistics and soothing ruffle feathers and making sure this is going to happen, and the lights are on, all that stuff is, so it's a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of me. I just say, hey guys, I make one post to RTL Toronto. By the way, we're having a show that weekend. Show up if you want. I'll give you a pass. And that's what we did so many times. And so because I'm not responsible for the entire show. I'm responsible for 400 square feet of that show. That's it. Like if you can't fill 400 square feet with something with like 3 or 4 people, might want to look at something else. Might get better friends. Because I would show up, Jeff, Janie, me, Ben and Bonnie sometimes, other people, whatever. Wonderful. Jason showed up with the Discovery, loved it, and then he showed up the next show with the Leonov and the Discovery, absolutely loved it. Greg Hyland showed up with his classic space layout, which dinged in my mind. I should start doing classic space layouts. So people would show up at these shows, and do us proud. But we weren't organizing the entire show, so Janie starts BrickFet. And that takes a huge amount of preparation. And again, I remember my parents doing, like, for every season of diving, for every camping trip for the Boy Scouts, for everything, months in advance. Especially the canoe trips. Like, my dad would talk to Scouter Bill, and they would hop in his plane and fly along the Grand River months in advance to figure out where the campsites are going to be, and logistics, and getting in the canoes there, and blah blah. And that's just a small canoe trip with 16 kids. Right, and the parents, and blah blah blah, and then you got the parents, not necessarily with our canoe trips because it was all close knit, but for some of the Boy Scout stuff that was open to the public, shall we say, the parents go, "Oh, little Timmy didn't get to partake in that, whatever, because we ran out of craft supplies. We were promised that Timmy would be able to build a birdhouse, whatever." Lady, you show up at 3:00 in the afternoon. But you promised, it was in the brochure that Timmy gets to build a birdhouse today. And then, so Karen's is not a new thing, by the way. I experienced Karen's at the age of 8 at our little Cub stuff, open to the public. And my mom is the one that was running that show. And she spent months beforehand getting everything ready, calling people, making sure the tables and the people and everything was manned, and the food and the outhouses. Like, there was a huge logistical thing to get just an afternoon in the park ready for some outreach. And then I'm there helping, obviously, because that's what I did when I was a kid. I always helped my mom and dad with whatever they're doing. And then Karen walks up. "Little Timmy, you can't build a birdhouse. You promised me a birdhouse, right?" And here's my mom, who's exhausted after months of this, and the day of, like the week before, is like a zoo in our house, and then the day of is like a zoo, and I'm running back and forth and blah blah blah, wherever needs to be filled. And I'm 8, 9, 10, 12, whatever. We did lots of them, and then it's 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm just beat, just completely done, and then this lady walks up to my mom, and I'm just ready to lay into her like this little punk ass kid, and I'm going, "Really? Do you have any idea what it took us to get to this point of this day?" Like, and you're whining that your little kid didn't get to build a birdhouse? Like, sorry, lady, I have zero sympathy for you showing up in the afternoon. But my mom, being my mom, gave her mine, which is fine, because that's what happened a lot. I won't mince words about that. And again, it's what happened, and the pluses far outweighed the cons, and blah blah blah. But if something like that was going to happen, my mom was soothe, ruffled feathers. And I remember this bringing us back to Janie. The very first year I was in on the in. I was in on the in group of people who were organizing, helping, whatever. And Janie knew who I was, so she assigned me what she knew I could handle, which is not logistics, period. So anyway, I'm outside the first public day or whatever, and this family comes up, and I'm not saying they were Karens. I don't want to say that. I don't remember the exact specifics, but they were put out by something. I can't remember the specifics, but they were demanding compensation and or access or whatever. And I said, they come up, because I'm one of the organizers, I'm wearing an organizer shirt. They come up to me, blah blah, and they said, blah blah blah, not full on Karen, but just like, I'm going, well, I have no authority. I'll go grab the organizer. And I go and I find Janie, and it says, gave her the lowdown. This is X, Y, and Z. Well, inverted printed slope. This is an awesome set. Anyway, and so she comes out with me to meet the husband and wife, and the husband's there, and the wife and the kids or whatever. And the guy's not laying into Janie, but he's being abrupt, shall we say. He's saying X, Y, and Z. promised this, that, and the other thing, and not delivered, whatever it was, and I can't remember the specifics. And Janie's sitting there very patiently, and I'm already losing my patience. But it's not my show, it's Janie's show. So I'm here to support Janie, just like I was there to support my mom. I'm not the one that's going to get yippy. It's not my show. I'm here to support the person who's running. Anyway, so Janie's listening to this guy for a while, and she goes, he's asking for X, Y, and Z, and she's saying, well, we'll give you A, B, and C, whatever it was. And that was sufficient enough to soothe the ruffled feathers. And everybody went their own way. And I'm going, that reminded me of being that kid at the shows with my mom at the outreaches on that day where Karen went full on Karen. And my mom has to soothe the ruffled feather after the entire months of prep and whatever. And I don't know how my mom kept it up all those years. and so my respect for Janie knows no bounds, straight up. She is one of my most favorite people on the planet. Because of who she is and how she conducts herself. And that day at the AHA Center, when that happened, I'm standing beside her because that's the least I could do. I brought her this issue. She came out. I'm standing beside her while she's dealing with the issue. And whatever her decision is that day, 100%. And I don't know I didn't know what was going into it. I know what I would have done if it was my show, but I knew then. I don't remember hardly anything about that, but I remember the feelings, the angst, and whatever. But whatever Janie came up with, I was going to help her with, including kicking these people off the property. But that's not what happened, because that's not who Janie is. She managed it just like my mom managed it. She did whatever she had to do in order to present a nice front, because it is her show, and she wants it to go swimmingly fine. And so she worked it out, and yet I wasn't going to leave her hanging there by herself with whatever this was going on, because I don't know which way it was going to go. And so I'm that kind of friend. I'm not the kind of friend that you can rely on to do all the nitty gritty minutiae, the logistics, and make sure all your ducks are in a row to make sure the show's going to go smoothly. Because I'm the guy who says, show up, see what happens. That's who I am. That's my entire life. Show up, see what happens. I put very, very minimal effort into logistics. Sandy gets mad at me all the time because we're going to go somewhere. Okay, let's go somewhere. Oh, what about? That's logistics. We'll worry about it when we get there, or whatever. You can't do that when you're going camping all the time, but whatever. My whole life, I show up and I see what happens because of my mom, because of the people who, Doug and Frank, because of the people I have behind me for doing the shows, Jeff, Janie, Ben and Bonnie, Kayon, like all those guys behind me, who I can rely on, that some of them, not all of them, but some of them will show up and we'll have a show, right? There was not one of those shows, the entire time we did them. We did lots of shows, that there was a space on the table that was empty that we didn't have anything to put there. And I'm not saying that's the proper way of doing things, because I appreciate the way Alan did it too. And there's a place for that as well. The full-on logistical, vetted out, who gets breaks when, blah, blah, blah. Because it is, you are presenting yourself to the public and you have to have all your ducks in a row. So I say that my way is not the way that you should do a show, really. I just happen to know that I had people behind me that would show up and we would have a show. If you don't have that, like my mom doesn't know who's going to come to the show or her community outreach. She didn't know. She had to be prepared for everything. And yet, here's a Karen at 3 p.m. Timmy didn't get his birdhouse. Like, if you're gonna, anyway, I'm not gonna dwell on that anymore. But I remember that to this day. I remember that incident with Janie to this day, and I remember standing beside her and just like, not with no attitude, poker face. I'm just there to support Janie, to know that I'm right behind her, right beside her. She's not alone in this. And whatever her decision is, that's my marching orders. Right there. I'm there for that, because that's my laissez-faire. Whatever happens, and I'm on site, yeah, grab me. I'll do what you need me to do. But planning and all that stuff, that's not who I am. I'm really not a planner. And my only defense has worked out so well in my life so far overall that I've made it to this age just by being laissez-faire. And what happens is that everybody's different, everybody's unique. As I say, I can have friendships that we don't talk to each other for a year or two or a decade. That's not going to affect my appreciation of who you are and what you mean to me. I'm not one of these people who has to have constant updates and constant communication in order to maintain a friendship. That's never been me. There are some people are like that. Some people really have to have that constant communication. And if they don't get it, that person doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Sorry, soap operas are off the table. Unless somebody actively makes it into a soap opera, then I get involved. But until I feel like somebody doesn't want to talk to me, well, that's fine. That's your decision. But if I don't actively talk to you for like a long time, I have a life and you have a life, and we're gonna have life elsewhere, and then we'll play catch up at some point. Sure, there's nothing wrong with that. That is who I am. I am laissez-faire. Don't rely on me for the logistics and, as I say, the nitty gritties, because that's not who I am. But rely on me to, if you have an idea and I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. So I'll bring something. And I'll support you. I'll support you in whatever you want to do. So this brings it back to here where I built up this friendship over a bunch of years with somebody that I met at BrickFat. And even through it all, and we hadn't talked to each other in quite a while, even through it all, to this day, he thought about me when he was downsizing, and he had all these wonderful bricks, and he says, Dave would appreciate this more than anybody else, and I do. Like, this is very, very humbling and very, very appreciative by me, that I was his thought when it comes to these pieces, and I am going to use them. Obviously. I love the people I've met, and that was to wrap up that other tangent. I love the people I've met, and this hobby would be less than it is. That's, I guess, the easiest way of putting it. This hobby in my life would be less than it is if I didn't meet you, even online, even on my YouTube channel. I consider you guys my friends. You guys have responded to my videos. You've asked me questions. You've offered some stuff. And I really, really deeply appreciate that. When I started this YouTube channel many, many years ago, I wasn't looking at creating a, what's the word I'm looking for? Subscriptions. I'm not, because you'll never hear me, well, hopefully you'll never hear me say like and subscribe, because that's not who I am. But I wasn't looking for an audience, shall we say. I wasn't looking for it. You go back to my original videos, I'm not looking for an audience. I did it for so I could show my friends and RTL Toronto dinners, and hey, look what we did last weekend. It was more like my dad's old slideshows, where I could show it off to people I knew, rather than having people out there in the world looking at my videos. It just happens to be on YouTube, so of course you can. So the fact that I have a channel now, or a following, humbles me. It really does. And you guys are responding to my videos. It's really comforting to me that this is happening, because I didn't expect it, and yet it's happening, and so I think about you guys, and I think about, content. Not that 38 minutes of this rambling is good content, but you're my friends, and we'll probably never meet in the real world. Most of you will never meet me in the real world. Some of you from across the pond in Europe. And I do have a fantasy in my head that should I become rich tomorrow, I would be able to pack up the layout and ship it. I'll take a boat across the pond, and do a show in Germany, because I love Germans. Let's go off on this really quick tangent. One of my favorite parts about LugNet back in the day, especially when it comes to classic space, was those Germans. Oh my goodness, the stuff that they built back in the day with the classic space stuff, just absolutely me away. Just absolutely fantastic. Um, so um, so I'd love to come to a show over in Germany and anywhere in Europe. My issue is that I have 8 big boxes that would not ship very go across the pond. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I really appreciate this. I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate, and I am, and when I say I'm humbled, I'm actually very, very much humbled, especially like when this stuff happens to me, and the offers of pieces and parts from you guys out there. It's humbling and it's sincerely appreciated. And again, it shows me that I am extremely fortunate to know who I know, and that I'm in this hobby for more than just, as I say, the bricks, the pieces, and the mocks. I'm here for the people. The people make my hobby a lot more enjoyable than it would be without them. And so that's it. That's all. 40 minutes, and I'm gonna start sorting this into the collection, and I will hopefully. I will say, getting this all mixed up now. I hope everybody out there is doing well on this weekend. And anyway, I'll just talk to you soon. Take care.